Hello friends, Patrick here. It is July 28th. We are almost at the end of the 7th month of the year. Haven't done a market update video in a little bit. Combo package of excuses all the way from vacation to busy to a big part of it was trying to figure out exactly what's going on out there. Obviously, massive seismic changes we've sort of experienced on and off over the last 5 years. But I would argue that what we've just gone through over the last 2 months, sort of May into June, here into July, has been one of the most drastic changes that we've seen. That being said, we had a huge change from December to January. So really, again, the code or the key word with all this is drastic change or keywords. So very quickly, I want to give you a quick sort of lead in to what got us to where we are right now. And then I want to go over what's happening right now and then possibly what's going to go on in the future. So chopping up the last sort of 6-8 months of the market into 3 sections might help make sense of things. So coming into the end of 2021 was an enormous year. 10,050 sales last year. The previous record was 9,156 sales in 2016. We averaged 6,500, 7,500, 8,000 sales a year in general, year in and year out in Niagara. So last year at 10,050, the first time we'd ever cracked 10,000 sales. And again, previously we'd only cracked 9,000 once. So it was a big year as far as activity. Average sale price last year was up 27 point something percent, the highest annual increase on record. And that was after 2020 was up 21% over 2019. So we went up by 21 something percent, 27 point something percent last year. So 2 really enormous years, but last year in particular was an absolute behemoth. So that's what fed into 2022. So the second chunk to look at is January, February into March 2022. There was an enormous uptick in overall activity, largely fed by 2 variables. January stunk for new listings. If you recall, all of us realtors were whining for more listing inventory. It was down 20-25% below what's normal for the month of January. Meanwhile, the average or the total number of sales was up considerably. You know, people counted to 10 on New Year's Day and said, okay, let's go buy some houses. And so the sales activity started instantly. So we had this discrepancy between the supply being down here and demand being up here. And so that happened through February, March. It wasn't as much of a supply issue as we got into February, March. It was a demand issue. Sales were just extraordinarily high, the demand, and we all know this story, right? House listed for $699, sells for $880, 47 showings, 11 offers. If you ask realtors, none of us were enjoying it, no matter what anybody tells you. Overall, there was fatigue. We recognized it was unsustainable. It was a little bit unhealthy. It was just bonkers. And so that was going on January, February, March. We knew it couldn't sustain itself because eventually something was going to burn out. And so as we got into April and May, that was sort of the next chunk to look at. So there was, the war in Ukraine was on its way. There was inflationary talk, recessionary talk, gas prices. Overall uncertainty, the overall climate out there was pretty difficult to get your head wrapped around. So whenever uncertainty enters any marketplace, what happens? People slow down, they back up, they say, wait a second, right? And that's exactly what happened. As we got into April and May, we started to see new listing inventory absolutely pile on as people didn't want to miss the boat, right? Holy crap, they got 880 in February, let's sell in March. All of a sudden it's April and they're trying to get, reach the boat or jump on the train. Meanwhile, the train's already left the station. And so it was a different kind of flavor out there as we got into those months. And then also sales pulled back as well at the same time, again, because of that uncertainty that I was talking about. So that's really what fed us into June and July. So what happened in June and July? So what happened in June and July? In a nutshell, it was supply and demand. Earlier this year, we had demand was way up here. Everybody wanted to buy 1 or 5 houses, and we had supply was average, sometimes a bit above average, sometimes a little bit less, but in general could not keep up with that demand. Now we have the opposite. So now we have lots of homes for sale. We have sort of a compounding monthly effect of more listings available, and we have a underwhelming amount of people that want to buy them. So that's a totally different market interaction than what we had in January, February, March. So as a result, we can all feel the difference or the result of that change. When we look at the supply of new listings on a monthly basis, in the history of Niagara, we've had 3 months that had more than 1,500 new listings. That was March 2021, April 2022 and May 2022. So that's this spring, April and May of this year, 2 of the 3 months that topped 1,500 new listings in 1 month for Niagara. What does June do? June almost hit 1,700 new listings. Remember, we've only got 3 months that topped 1,500. 2 of them were April and May of this year. June, the next month, almost hit 1,700. So that's a serious onslaught of supply. Again, it's people piling on, trying to get that big buck, when in fact they're probably going to be too late. Sidebar, we're going to see July, the new listing inventory will return back towards something that resembles normal, which is great, rather than having yet another month of overabundant supply, I guess you could say. Pictures can explain what I'm saying way better than I personally can. In this case, the picture is a graph, and who doesn't like a good graph? So this is going to show you right here, St. Catharines. So in pink, you see the monthly number of new listings. In black is the 10-year average for that respective month. And you'll see, as I mentioned earlier, January was undersupplied. So January was the only month this year that was below average. You can see every other month was above or significantly above average in terms of the number of homes listed for sale. And again, this is just St. Catharines as an example. Largely the same trend has played out across the city, across the region. Now that's supply. Let's look at sales or the demand right here. So again, same deal. This shows you St. Catharines going back to January. In pink is 2022. In black is the 10-year average. And you can see a huge difference. There you go. January, February, March, significantly above average number of homes sold. And then a marked difference as we got into April, May, June. And again, July is what's on pace for. But we're at July 28th. So the jury's sort of out already on July. Or is it jury in? One of the two. But you can see how huge of a difference we had. So flipping back to the new listings, remember how above average it was for every month except for January. Meanwhile, we have the number of sales since April of this year are significantly under normal. And again, that's a market that's just in transition, trying to figure itself out. But that's where it is right now. Just a little sidebar factoid. And again, this is all temporary, right? This is a market in transition. It's a bit ugly. But just to give you an example, if you take January and December out, because those are quiet, dead of winter, Christmas, holidays, all that sort of stuff, they're low volume months historically. So if you look only from February to November, the number of homes sold, currently the record low is April 2020. April 2020, when COVID arrived, knocked the market on its back. Everything froze up and stopped. July 2022 is about to place second on the worstest category. It's going to come in around 390 sales, up against April 2020, which was 292 sales. So that puts in context how weak it is. The 10-year average for the month of July is 765. So yes, things right now on the sales front, the demand front, is much weaker than what it normally would be. So one last thing on the supply and demand. When you look at the number of homes listed on a monthly basis versus the number of homes sold, that differential is going to determine what kind of market you have. If you've got this many new listings and this many sales, you've got a really heated market where every month there's not a lot that's left over, so buyers are sort of fighting for what's available. Versus this many new listings and only this many sales, you have all these other listings that are left over. Buyers sitting back saying, hey, let's wait on this one. I'll go look at this one. I don't know about it. I'm going away for the weekend. I'll check on it on Monday, right? Totally different environment, totally different climate, totally different buyer experience and seller experience. So let's look at right now, 2022. Guess what? April, May, June, and July. On average, we would typically see 200, 350, somewhere in that range, more listings than sales in a given month. So again, enough that a buyer can have a look, has some choice, but not so much that we're at where the seller's not able to sell. Period. The last 4 months, April 716 more new listings than sales. April, May 961 more new listings than sales. June 1138 more new listings than sales. I couldn't find another month with more than 1,000, with a larger than 1,000 gap between the number of new listings and the number of sales. So that's a huge deal. To have that much happen month in and month out. July is going to be, again, I mentioned that new listings are pulling back towards normal, but it's still going to be around 800 more new listings than sales. So that compounding effect is going to spill over and create way more buyer choice, way longer days in the market, and again, a totally different experience. And the the result of that is going to be pricing and percentage of pricing. So back earlier this year, we saw 110, 115, 120% of asking. Yes, underpricing was a big deal, but now we've transitioned to this point where there's so much choice out there for a buyer. If you've watched any of these videos before, you know that the direct result of supply and demand interaction is pricing, just like anywhere else, right? The supply of Harry Styles tickets and the demand determines that people pay an outrageous price to go see that dude. So the same thing happens with housing. So again, over the last 4 months, we have had an onslaught of new listing inventory, lots of choice, and less buyers. So those two things happening at the same time will result in a heavy buyer's market like we're in now. But let's rewind the tape a second. Remember last year, 2021 was up 27.5% from the previous year. By all accounts, an enormous year. Then in January, we had one of the biggest, if not the biggest, 1 month increases in value that I've seen. Niagara jumped up by over 100 grand. St. Catharines was up by 100 grand. I think 19% for St. Catharines in 1 month. So yes, were there gains to give back? You could argue that. And that's exactly what happened. As we got into June, we saw that big increase that happened December into January, almost the opposite that happened from May into June. So as far as pricing goes, a lot of the cities we're seeing in Niagara right now are sitting in sort of end of 2021 values. So we've given up, in essence, we've given up that big increase we had then. Is this permanent? No. Because in previously historic markets that have done this sort of thing, we've seen this sort of flip-flop adjustment, awkward time period where pricing doesn't know what it's doing, supply and demand is figuring itself out, and then it slowly finds its footing, and then it rebounds and it comes back. But right now, that's exactly where we're at. I'm going to show you 4 graphs. This is Niagara. Shows you the average sale price going back to October of last year, and you can see that sort of, is it a mesa? I think they call it MESA. It jumps up into January. It bounces around up in the high 8s. And then again, it came back as we got towards here into the summer. St. Catharines, same deal. Most houses in Niagara trade in St. Catharines on an annual basis, so we always include St. Catharines. And the same deal you'll see. Right now, July is going to be sitting around 660,000 on average. Our peak was back in February, March when we were up into the 790 range. Niagara Falls, number 2 in Niagara Region as far as the number of homes sold every year. And you'll see a bit of volatility, a bit of weirdness in February, March, and April, but in general, you see the same kind of trend. And then number 3 in Niagara as far as the number of homes sold is Welland. So you can see that here. Again, doesn't matter where you look in general. When you look at the smaller markets with less houses that sell, maybe 30 houses a month, kind of, Lincoln, Niagara Lake, Grimsby, Port Colborne, that sort of thing. It's all over the map because you get outliers that stretch things, right? So really that's why I'm just showing you those 4 graphs in particular. But the overall trend is consistent across the region. You're probably saying, holy crap, what's going on out there right now? And in a nutshell, what's going on out there right now is exactly that. It's happening right now. When we look at, I don't know if you remember this, September 2008, when the global financial meltdown started, massive monolithic corporations were going under on a daily basis. The overall prognosis from our side of things sitting at a realtor's desk was, holy cow, we're never going to recover from this. Nothing's going to be good again, right? It was panic stations. There was uncertainty, was incredible. And so what did the market do then? October, the average sale price in Niagara was down 13% in 1 month, back September into October. Because everything froze, people got cautious, pulled back, deals died, people backed out of deals. I'm not going to buy that. The global financial situation is on fire, basically. And so when that happened, if you look on a monthly basis what happened with pricing, it bounced around plus this, negative this, plus this, just because the market, again, had to find its footing and find its balance until it started to figure itself out. But for the next 5 or 6 years, we were sitting around, until the 2015-16 market showed up, we were sitting around 2, 3, 4% increase a year. Because, again, it took a while for everything to sort of find its rhythm and get going. And then once we got into 15, 16, 17, we all know what happened. We had 20% plus increases in pricing. But if you go back to that 2008, nobody would have ever thought we would recover. But the fact is we lost that 13% right away. But when you came back 8-9 months later, we'd recovered it and we were back up into the positive territory. But out of the gates, when that first happened, yes, absolutely, the market pulled back, the dollars pulled back, and everything just sort of froze in a sense until it figured itself out. And I'm not an economist. I've said that a million times before, but you could argue that yes, right now we're in a time of uncertainty. If anybody tells you they know when it's going to be done, I'd love to hear where they're coming from, because right now it's just speculation, right? But a market that's going to find its footing will be here. It's just a matter of when that happens. Again, you go back to the war in Ukraine, gas prices, inflation, supply chain issues, the interest rate hikes that are going on right now that are designed to tame inflation, which is a lagging indicator. So we're not going to find out until that week or month until what's happening right now works, right? So the result is we're doing all this stuff. We're going to find out down the road if it works. And when that works, all of a sudden sentiment changes. People say, well, wait a second. Rates just came down a point. I really like the price of these houses. Let's go do something. That buyer jumps in. That buyer jumps in. People are cautious. They're not putting their homes up for sale. And guess what happens? All of a sudden, we start to see that teeter-totter start to totter in the other direction. And then the market changes again, right? But right now, we're certainly not there. I know everybody's trying to time the market. I'm going to wait. Well, at some point, people wait to the point where as quickly as we've seen it change in either direction in the last 6 months, it can do just that again in the future. It's just a matter of when that happens and when, again, some kind of order is restored out there. But right now, all we can do is keep tracking what's going on in the marketplace, making decisions that are best for yourselves, as far as if you want to move, if you want to buy or sell, that sort of thing. There's a ton to think about, right? Case in point, if you're selling your home over here and you're looking to buy a house over here, depending on what kind of scenario you're doing, it's actually a better time right now. For example, if you're looking to move up into a larger home, to some extent, the market changes that have affected the entry-level stuff is not as strong as what's been going on with some of the higher-end market activity. So it depends what you're looking to do. But if you're selling and buying in the same market, to some extent, it's an exchange of value. If you're buying and selling in this market or this market, the math may find itself netting out the same. Or if you're only buying, you could argue right now in a relatively heavy buyer's market, you've got a ton more choice, less competition. You can do inspection and finance and take your time and have a breath and think about stuff, right? So that as a buyer, you're in a better position. And then if you're strictly selling, well then yes, it's not what it was in February, March, but it's still more than it was last year. And last year was up 27.5% and everybody was thrilled. So it all depends on what area of the market you're operating in, what you're looking to do, when you're looking to do it, that sort of thing. It is not a one-size-fits-all market. It's not, again, a monolithic market where the same thing happens on every street in every region. It's depending on what you're selling, where you're selling it, and all that kind of good stuff, right? So yeah, there's a ton to think about. That is a wrap. A few other pieces of info for you. If you haven't checked out our blog, it's on our website. I'll put a link below this video. We do market info. We do market intel. We do just general real estate stuff. And sometimes we do just good old-fashioned life blogs, but it's all on there. We've been writing a blog for 10, 12 something plus years. So there's tons and tons of resources there. As well, if you haven't checked it out, we have an award-winning podcast. The award's right over there. Man, I should have had it in my hands right now just to show you. Bam! There it is. Your Niagara Real Estate Podcast. Myself and my buddy Sean Delott over at Remax there. We do that podcast. We're going to be recording a few more next week. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to stuff, you'll be able to find it there. So yeah, go check that out. If you have any questions about the market, what's going on in general, you're more than welcome to reach out. Love chatting with people. And then as far as going forward from here, I don't know, I guess a big piece of me just says enjoy your summer. I know there's a lot going on out in the world right now that isn't tremendous. So sometimes you just have to go for a walk or go get some ice cream or enjoy the little things that make life special, right? So yeah, it's not always real estate, but we're here to help you with the real estate stuff. If you have questions, we invite you to contact us. Okay, thank you. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Award winning, by the way, right here.